Hey everyone, this is Ole Sharanki from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS podcast.
Today's guest is a public servant, father, husband, and so much more. He is the current founding president and board chair of the Burden Bearers Project. As a champion of career advancement, education, and family, he's passionate about the issues that deeply align with the goals of his partnership. He's passionate about minority careers, education, fatherhood, single fatherhood, and how it impacts communities and future generations. Just a couple facts here for you. The 2016 United States Census Bureau reported that there were 2 million single fathers. Single fathers constitute 16% of single parent families. The number of single fathers has increased by 60% over the last 10 years, according to Single Parent Magazine, and is also one of the fastest growing family segments in the US. 40% of single fathers are divorced, 38% were never married, 16% were separated, and 6% were widowed. There is little research to validate the specific hardships of the single father as a caretaker. However, there is a lot of information on the hardships of a single parent. Please help me in welcoming our guest this afternoon, Mr. Ree Atukwefi.
So, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you here. So, tell us a little bit about your background. How is it you got to Houston? Were you born and raised in Houston? Or?
Yeah, so I was actually born and raised in Grambling, Louisiana, small town between Shreveport and Monroe in northeast Louisiana, about an hour east of Shreveport, 30 minutes west of Monroe, and also home of Grambling State University, Grambling State Marching Band, and Eddie Robinson. So I have a younger sister who, we both were born and raised there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So again, tell us a little bit about your family dynamic. Was education pushed on you guys? Was it something that you embraced? Were you a troubled student?
Yeah, so it was definitely something that we didn't have a choice of whether we were going to go to college or not. It was just, we just kind of knew growing up that we were going to go to college and finish college. So that was, we never really, it just wasn't really talked about much. And my dad is from Ghana, and so African parents are very, they're like, no, you're going to get your education. My mom is from Louisiana, but she, also was an educator. So that was never really something that was not going to happen in the house, not to go to college. I wasn't the best student. My sister was, but I wasn't the best student. I got into a lot of, I was just a typical boy, like to get into things, do things. I butted heads against my dad all the time. But, now being a father, I respect a lot of what he did and don't necessarily agree with how he did everything, but I understand why he did things. So, but to answer your question, yeah, from Grambling, I ended up graduating from Grambling. Having done an internship in college, I moved to New Orleans, worked in the grocery industry with a company called S.C. Johnson Wax. Moved from there, got into the pharmaceutical industry, and started working in Dallas for about 4 years, and then moved to Houston. I take that back. I was in grocery industry in New Orleans and in Dallas, and then moved to Houston for a pharmaceutical position.
So there's a lot there. One, you talked about parenthood,
Mm-hmm.
and then you also talked about seeing life differently as a parent than when you were a child, And then you also talked about like disagreeing with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm prying too much or if I'm picking too much, you'd be like, that's this. Chill out. I don't know that. Okay, but let's talk about the how, because a lot of parents are struggling with their kids now, and the kids are struggling too, and we don't quite understand sometimes where that struggle is coming from. So could you talk a little bit about your struggle? Like what was it like, that relationship, that tension, and then what are some of the things that you guys did to overcome that, and then what are some of the things you're doing differently with your kids in that regard?
Yeah. I think that for me, I think there's a fine line when you are a parent and a child. You can, as a parent, you want to know, you want to try to help, you want to try to be there, but many times the child may not necessarily want you to be in that space, or they don't know how to communicate what they need from you. And so their circle of influence really are their friends and what they're getting from TV, and they might even be other adults, a coach or teacher or something of that nature. But I think the important part speaking from a father standpoint is to just make sure that you're always available, make sure that you're always there, that you're, can go to, if you can go to school for the minor things like, just showing up for, I used to go all the time go to pop up at my kids' school when they were in elementary school and have lunch with them, just so they can know that I'm not just there when they get in trouble. I'm also there when there's nothing else going on. But I think that just that consistency, at some point in time, it registers. And they're like, okay, well, Dad was always there, And then that's when the shift starts changing, when they get to a certain age, where they start seeing that regardless of what I've done as a child or what I haven't communicated, my parents are still there and they support me 100%. And then hopefully there's that connection that, it's something that is in God.
Yeah, that they're not just doing this stuff because they don't like me or because they're angry with me, but they're actually doing it because they care about me.
And that's very frustrating as a parent, because there's many times that you're trying to warn your child about some of the obstacles that they're going, that they're facing, and what's going to happen on the other side of it, because you've already been there, and they still want to try to do it, and then on the other flip side of that, you're like, I don't know what to tell you.
Wow. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole. If there's one thing I love, it's something free. I'm talking free 99, un gratis. No shipping or handling fees, no gotcha fees, nothing like that. With that being said, if you're graduating soon or thinking about college or need a nudge or help to decide, then our free ebook, 10 Things to Think About Before Going to College, has a very balanced and open-minded way of presenting your next steps. It captures broad topics in a personal way by giving students an insightful, interactive, and reflective source of inspiration. It is very beneficial to be able to visualize some of the concepts after high school and apply them directly to you. We all know life, college, and career planning decision-making choices for students can be challenging, especially as they near the completion of high school. This book will provide you with a self-paced guide to your success beyond academics and into real life. Not only is it free, you can complete this book within a week. This will definitely prepare you for long-term success. To get your free copy, simply go to lys.com/students. I mentioned it was free, right? Well, if I didn't, it's free. Like, for real. Okay, back to the podcast.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your children and kind of your family dynamics, if you don't mind sharing that?
Yeah. So I have 3 kids. They are 24, 22, and 17. So my son just graduated from Grambling about 2 weeks ago. So that was I'm proud of him.
So you forced them to go, just like your parents.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny. So my middle child, she is very creative, very smart, but college was not necessarily for her. She went to ACC, started off, but she's more of a creative. She wants to do things outside of what she feels school, the traditional school route will give her. So me and their mom, my ex-wife, we had to kind of toil with that a little bit, because our generation was college. Everybody was college. So yeah, and then my youngest one, she's a junior in high school now. She'll be a senior next year. So you guys heard me say that, their mom, their ex-wife, we were married, met in college. We were married for 21 years. Had met in college, so we dated for about 4 or 5 years. So we were together over half our life. We raised each other pretty much. And then, unfortunately, we divorced about 4 years ago.
I don't mean to pick, but could you talk a little bit about that? Like, because people tout education as the answer to everything, right? And it's almost like, it's like education become like almost a religion to a certain degree, where it's just like, oh, you go to college, your life's gonna be a miracle. It's just gonna be, you know what I mean? And so, obviously, you're well-educated gentlemen. You appear kind. So can you just kind of talk about some of the dynamic, not going into anything to bash or anything like that, but just to kind of share with us, like, okay, what that struggle is like, because I think there's people who might be watching this, or people even in the room who might feel like, okay, I'm struggling. What are some things that we could do to not struggle as much, what are some things we can do different?
And you're talking about in the relationship?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, so for what I would say is, unfortunately, we got to this point where it just wasn't working anymore. And it's funny because now being the type of person that I am, I probably would have done things differently. But that is also part of the learning, healing process. Right? I think that it's very important that if you are with someone, whether you were married and you're divorced, or you're not married, but you all have a child together, to always make sure that the child is the target, the goal. So that way the conversations that you're having will all be about the well-being of the child and children. So that's kind of the mindset that we had, and that's what helped us. The flip side of that, too, is that you have to go through your own individual healing process, whatever that may be, however long that may take. And there's going to be times when you maybe can't stand the other person, or you don't want to talk to the other person, or you still have feelings for the other person, but for whatever reason. But you have to go through that journey of the healing in order to, one, be good for yourself, in order to be able to love somebody else, and to also be able to love your kids the way they need to be loved through that. Because there's a lot of stuff that's going on when you're going through a divorce, or you and your girlfriend, boyfriend not working. That's a big storm that's going on in the middle of trying to make sure that your child is good.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being open and sharing it.
Yeah, so, you're able to come out of that. How did you come about to having this strong passion for fathers and fatherhood? What kind of led to that?
Well, I think for me, it was I already had a good blueprint of a dad. My dad was a strong man. He was one of little words, but when he did speak, it was something valuable. And he was also a man of action, so he might not have said much, but when he did something, or if he said he was going to do something, he did. And that was something he always tried to instill in me. So I had a good blueprint. And so fast forward to the nonprofit, one of the things when I went through the divorce, and I tell the story, it's even on our website, when I went through the divorce, I burned through a lot of my savings because I was trying to, one, maintain the household that my children used to live in, but then also I needed to have a place for me to stay. And I could have probably stayed somewhere that was, more affordable outside of, at that time, the family was living in Katy. I wanted to live kind of close, so if I needed to get to them, they needed to come to me, I was close. So I burned through a significant amount of my savings. So I thought, well, how are people who don't have 401ks, they don't have savings, they're working at 9 to 5, they're having to work overtime to be able to put food on the table, to be able to just provide a roof over their head, how do they do it? And so I said that once I get back on my feet, one of the things I was going to do was going to try to help the single father.
So can you give us the name of the nonprofit and share the website?
Yeah. So the name of the nonprofit is Burden Bearers Project. The website is burdenbearersproject.com. That's BURDENBEARERS project.com. And it's a nonprofit organization for financially disadvantaged minority single fathers. And we really, with us being as young as we are, we try to help with anything from education, if you're trying to go back to school, if you want to go to trade school, if your child is trying to go to trade school or college, helping with school clothes for the upcoming school year for your children, school supplies. We try to help with whatever we can at that time.
So I remember watching a really good TED Talk about fathers and how they're kind of the forgotten in the single father sphere, right? Because the majority of single parents are usually women.
Hey, LYS fam. It's Ole. Thanks so much for listening to LYS. I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk to the parents. That's right, mom and dad. Parents, prepare your child for their best educational fit after high school with our comprehensive LYS Parents Guidebook. Our helpful guide includes a range of activities designed to help you better understand your child's unique gifts and abilities. Additionally, we provide valuable insights into the student loan debt crisis and offer practical tips on how to avoid accumulating large amounts of debt. Our ebook also includes a wealth of information on scholarships, grants, and payment exemptions that can help guide your child towards a bright and successful future. With our expert guidance, you can rest assured that your child is well prepared to make informed decisions about their education and career path. Don't let your child's future be in jeopardy. Invest in their future today by downloading the LYS Parents Guidebook. Now let's get back to the show, because you know it's some good topics.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions about single fatherhood that you've learned about or that you've seen while starting?
One big one is that, like you said, we're non-existent. Like they don't, the single father doesn't care. There's a lot of, it's funny how many women have come up to me once they found out and said, I was raised by a single dad. So, and I get kind of teary-eyed when I talk about that piece. But, so that's one misconception. The other one is that these single fathers don't necessarily care. And I think they get that stereotype because maybe they're not there. But sometimes they're not there because they're working in order for the child to be able to play football, or be able to play basketball, or go to this camp, or whatever the case may be. And so I can't remember what I was watching one day. It was on, I think it was an Instagram reel, not on Facebook, but the person that said it said that you can't have a man to be at two places at once. He's either going to be at work or he's going to be at home. And if he's at work, he's working in order to provide for you. If he's at home too much, now he's not able to provide, but he's there. And now maybe that child is not able to participate in the things that they want to participate in. So which way do you want it?
Yeah, it's trade-off.
It's a trade-off. Yeah.
These days, there's a lot. We've got AI, we've got social media, we have the adultification of kids. You know, I was telling someone yesterday, I had fifth graders that always come up to me saying, Mr. Strunke, can you give me a white mocha of this?
Right, yeah.
And my first response is, you can't add fractions. Right.
Right.
But you know about the secret menu at Starbucks.
Exactly.
The math is not math.
Exactly. First of all, what is a white mocha?
What are we doing here? So, what are some of the things you're doing to help fathers? And what's some of your advice for fathers dealing with kids in 2024?
I would say that the biggest thing I would say to help kids is to be present. There's a lot of, just because you're in the house doesn't necessarily mean you're present, right? There's a lot of, gamers out there, and they'll sit there in front of the video games all day and they're playing video games, and then the kids are running around and I'm always at home. Yeah, but you're never with the child, right? So I think to make sure that you're there, because if you're there, or if you're present when you are there, now you're able to monitor what are they doing at home with AI or with, on social media, and try to help guide them away from that. Those, not necessarily guide them away from that, but protect them from the evils that are within social media and can be within AI. I think from a job perspective, one of the things that we know, AI is here to stay. So try to become educated on how AI can affect your life positively from a work perspective, and even at home. So there's many people that I know that have used ChatGPT to recreate their resume. So things like that. So that's the biggest advice I would give. Just make sure that from a child perspective, be at home, and when you're at home, be present.
So if you were just to kind of have an open platform right now, we just open it up, and you just to share your heart, what are some things that you would want to share with this audience, and even just fathers out there who maybe are kind of losing hope, or who, again, maybe they went through that divorce and they don't see, like it almost sounded like you had a level of confidence that said, oh, I'm gonna make it out of this. You know what I mean? And when I get to the other side, I'm gonna help some other people. And some people just don't have that. What would you say?
I would say, one, you have to realize that every single person on this planet is going to go through some storm. And there's going to be multiple storms throughout however long you live. It's not just going to be one. And when you realize that, you also realize that because there are multiple storms that occur, that also means there's going to be multiple sunlights. So you You go through something, you learn, you live, you go through something else, you learn, you live, and hopefully in that process, you're giving wisdom back to the people that are going through or will be going through a storm. I also say that just we as men, period, are not necessarily taught to share our feelings. So I like to say, make sure that you have a good group of guys around you that are going to call you to carpet when you're doing something wrong. And that you can share information with, you can share what you're going through. And because we need to have a release so that we can be stronger for our families. I have a good group of people around me. You have one guy that also from Grambling. We've been best friends since high school. He was in my wedding, best man at both weddings. Wow. But he always used to call me to the carpet about crazy stuff I was doing. He was always wiser than his age.
Wow.
And so he is one that has kept me and allowed me to share my emotions and feelings, and vice versa. So.
Well, thank you. We want to go and open it up to the group now, to the audience, and take any questions that you guys have regarding education, fatherhood, the Burden Bearer Project, the work that they're doing in the community. Any questions, we're open to take them, or even questions about laddering success and what we're doing. So,
A question. So, regarding to the laddering of success, the mentoring, do you guys do one-on-one mentoring, or how does that go for high school students?
Good question. So we really do the video format to keep it as open as possible, and in that way it's transparent too, right? It's not like, who you text at 1 a.m., right? But we do actually have a group channel that we just started on WhatsApp, and so we could go through that group channel, and then that way, parent and other person can get in there, whether it be, family member or a child can get in there, and then there can be some transparency. And so, again, we will do one-on-ones too from time to time. We try to be as cost-effective as possible because we're what's called a social profit, and don't get me into the business world of that. That is, I wish it was a nonprofit. That means somebody gives some money, but
that's hard.
That's how we go about doing that. And so definitely we try to in our one-on-ones really try to help students find their purpose. We use a couple of different methods. One of the methods is the KEGI. Our method that we created is called Being, Knowing, Doing. So being is about character, values, and principles. Knowing is about what resources are available and how to use them. And then doing is executing with excellence, basically creating a plan about how you plan to move forward with your education. And so we take that methodology and then we start applying it toward career and education. But because of how robust the methodology is, it can be applied in 7 unique areas of life. And so it's health, financial, social, cultural, spiritual, educational, and vocational. And so we try to apply that method in each one of those areas. So then that way it kind of helps the students to do a lot of self-reflection and have a roadmap for their own success. And so one thing that we find is, often that communication is not there. And so when the student's not able to express their idea in a way that makes sense to the parent, is oh nah, you want to be a gamer, you want to be a YouTuber,
right. You're
and it's like, yeah, you're doing that foolishness, and now, they have teams in college that are gamers.
Yeah. They make a lot of money.
Make a lot of money. The top gamer, I think it was 2018, was like $1.2 million. And so those are things that to certain communities is like, nah, you could never be that or do that, and it's really a matter of like how figuring it out and getting a serious template together, and not just, oh yeah, I'm playing to tune out, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of how we approach that method, because when you apply that method, you're able to start figuring out who you need to spend time with. And so that's one of the biggest struggles I think that students have, is that they don't know who to spend time with, because the way school is just like, okay, we're in the same class, or we went to the same schools, and that made us friends. But really, you should be aligned with people who have similar values, character, and principles. People who are going where you're trying to be. One of the things that we talk about in the book is having a person above you, next to you, and below you. The person above you, you're looking up to, you're aspiring to be. The person who's next to you, you're able to check yourself and have that accountability that comes with friendship. and then the person below you, you're actually lifting them up. And that helps you to be accountable, so that way, you know, if Ree ever called me and say, hey, Festus, you know, I've seen you been posting something crazy online, what's going on? I said, oh man, I look up to Ree, so I don't want to have him say something, you know, to me that make me shame or guilt or anything like that. But then also, the people you compare yourself with is say, okay, well, we went to college together, but what are we doing now? Okay, what kind of conversations are we having? And so it's interesting, especially when you listen to you, if the conversation is constantly about the past, mentally they're looking backward. That means they can't be going forward. So they always talking about how fun cheerleading was, how this was, and how was. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. You know, you're looking backward. So, you know, you want to be around people who are having conversations about what's going on. Like, man, I'm getting ready to go here. I'm going here. I'm going here. And you always going somewhere. Like, go with me. You know what I mean? And then finally, you know, that person who you're pulling up, it could be a little cousin, it could be a family friend, it could be someone in church or mosque or whatever your community group is that, okay, usually what I find with kids is it's the little person that, oh, get away from me, you know, you kind of pushing them off.
Yep.
You know, the younger sibling is like, oh, get away from me. And it's like, that's the person you should be lifting up, because they want to be with you. They already look up to you. But, you know, our society has a way of throwing all these things off. And so, thank you so much for the question.
I actually have another question.
Yeah.
Is it Mr. Reed?
Reed, yep.
Reed? I brought my niece here. She's a rising senior, and I'm interested to hear your perspective on, so I heard you graduated, you went into the grocery industry, then you decided pharmaceutical. So she's trying to decide whether she wants to major in English or history, kind of career path. How did you figure that out?
So for me, I because of the growing up at that time in Grambling, a small town, there weren't too many things that I saw outside of being a, you know, African parents always talking about doctor, lawyer, and so, or business person. So Grambling at that time had a really good, I'm not sure about now, but they had a really good program in their business department that brought a lot of people who had graduated that were in these different fields. And one of the things that I gravitated to were the pharmaceutical representatives. So I knew when I graduated college that I wanted to go to the pharmaceutical industry. Unfortunately, the only way at that time that I could really get into the pharmaceutical industry was I needed to get some sales training. And that's how I got into the grocery trade. So I was a sales representative for the grocery industry. So what I would say, and this is conversations I've had with my daughters, is if you have an idea of the industry, the field that you want to go into, I would say to take a look at what is needed skill set wise in that particular industry, in that area that you want to go into, and then start trying to align yourself to develop those skill sets so that when you graduate, you're in the best position to be successful at that time. And I would also say, this is something I pushed on my son, but my son didn't listen to me. Internships. Any internships that you can get, because you have to remember, and this is something I broke down for my son, whenever you graduate from college, it's not just whatever college you graduated from and the graduating seniors that are graduating looking for jobs. You have all the colleges and universities from across the United States and outside that are looking for those same job opportunities. So who are they going to select? They're going to select more than likely, the people that already have a little bit more experience than the person that's just graduating from college with a great GPA. Because now I don't have to use as much time to train you to get up to speed as I would someone who's graduating with no experience, even though they may have a fantastic GPA. I'll be honest with you, I graduated from Grambling with like a 2 something. So that's not good, right? But I had 2 years of internship. So when I graduated, I already had a job with a very good company. And so that just kind of gives you an example of how, if you align yourself with the direction that you want to go, the industry that you want to go in, you can be successful.
And real quick, one thing I would recommend as well is, thank you so much for that, Reed. Festus put me on this. He used to always talk about it. Now it's become a part of my BLS.gov. Go to BLS.gov and just type in whatever particular career field you're looking into. Go ahead, just
Sorry. It's called the Occupational Outlook Handbook on BLS.gov.
Okay.
Occupational Outlook Handbook. And it's just this massive book where the Bureau of Labor Statistics put together all the occupations, and basically you could go on there and then, like you said, type in that occupation, and it'll give you a lot of background information about that occupation. How do you get in the field? How much education you need? How much the pay range is? And they have all these data and statistics about, you know, what they pay in Idaho versus what they pay in Texas and all those different types of things. And it also gives how fast the career is either growing or slowing down. And I think that's something that's really important too. So, you know, just one career field that a lot of people don't think is a career field is flying drones. You know, so there are actually certifications that you could get to fly drones at different heights. And so from everything from checking roadways to after disasters to just aviation field in general, flying drones for the military. You know, that's a massive field, and it pays, from my understanding, really well. And a lot of times you just need a high school diploma. And so these are things that sometimes we don't get exposed to, but looking through the book, I think is a good kind of indicator, and then just finding people to get around who could get you in that space.
And it's called the Occupational
Outlook Handbook. Yeah.
Outlook.
OOH, yeah,
Okay.
OOH. Another acronym. So, yes, do we have any other questions before we close out?
I got one. As a parent wanting to ensure your children are set up for success, what was the process of supporting your daughter like when she decided that college education was not the route for her?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Because one, I think you have to be comfortable with your emotions, right? Because when you're a traditional parent and raised a traditional way, there's going to be that disappointment when you think all your kids are supposed to go to college. So with her being the first one to say, I don't think college is for me, and she pretty much had been saying that since she graduated high school. But we were like, well, you still gonna go to college anyway, you figure it out after that. But after, so we kind of we did like a negotiation with her. Let's just get through go to ACC, get through your prerequisites, and then we'll see where. And we were hoping that she would like, you know what, okay, I think I found my way, I'm gonna go do this. Because she had some things that she wanted to do. She's very analytical, very creative, so she wanted to go into, she thought about forensic science. So we talked about that. But then after more conversation and her just really, you know, putting her foot down, if you will, and just saying that I'll be wasting y'all's money. And that's what really got me. When she said, I'll be wasting y'all's money, we had to really sit back and say, you know, okay, well, you let us know what it is you need and we'll try to support you from that. But one of the conversations you have to have with your kids when they do that, though, even when they go to graduate from college, is that you have to have a conversation with them and let them understand that whatever you decide you're going to do, inevitably that falls back on you in terms of the outcome. If I've tried to give you the direction based on what I have seen and what the results I see come from certain areas, and you decide to go another route and it doesn't work out, okay, what's your plan B? But don't come back to me and are complaining about the world because it's not working out and you decided that you wanted to go this direction. So I think you have to be open-minded to accept what your child is trying to say. But then two, you have to have a conversation with your child to also let them know that I'm not fully with you on this, but this is the direction that you want to go. You have to also accept if things don't work out the way that you want them to work out, that those are sometimes the consequences that come with your decision. Every decision has some type of consequence. So now the other thing in this day and age is kids are not like our kids when we were growing up. Like you try to talk about plan B. Oh no, you don't. Don't support me. No, I'm not trying to say I don't support you. I'm just trying to, get you to think, about all of it. What is your plan B if, or heaven forbid, something doesn't work out? What is your next option to make sure that you still get to where you want to get to? It doesn't mean that you have to go the route I'm telling you to go, but what's your next route to get to where you want to go? So.
Well, we appreciate you. Thank you for coming. Ole, you have anything?
No, I'm saying just thank you so much. I think we've been really, really blessed to have some really great speakers.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, no, yeah, please.
What was your experience like going to an HBCU? Do you think that's better than going to just like a regular college?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm glad you asked that because I actually started off at Louisiana Tech University, which is about 4 miles away from Grambling. The only reason why I went to Louisiana Tech, because I really wanted to go to FAMU, Florida A&M. And the only reason why I went to Louisiana Tech is one, I think I told you earlier on, my mom wanted me to stay close to home. So somehow she convinced my dad that I could stay off campus if I went to Louisiana Tech, because my dad was so strict, I wouldn't have had any college fund. So I did that, because my parents were so strict, my dad was so strict, I partied a lot, so I got in a lot of trouble, grade-wise. So I ended up transferring, a few years later to Grambling. I say that because I want to try to give you a little perspective. Sometimes at other colleges, you're just a number. At Grambling or at HBCU, they see their son, they see their daughter, they see their niece, they see their nephew. So they're working with you a little bit harder to try to make sure that you're getting what you need. Read out and see your class, what's going on. But then it's also like you're at home. I don't know how I can explain it, but it's like and I would say, don't go to just, if you can, check out different HBCUs that you can go to, walk around. Same with what we call the predominantly white institutions, PWIs. Do the same thing so you can get a feel for what's calling you. But you feel at home when you find the right HBCU because it's just the feeling. It's hard to explain, but for me, both of them, when I compare my experience at Louisiana Tech, which is a great institution, and my experience at Grambling, I wouldn't trade HBCU for anything in the world. Yeah. And then the other thing too, I would say is that you have a lot of companies that come specifically looking for minorities. So they'll come to, the HBCUs looking for a minority that's in whatever field that you're interested in. And that's how I got my opportunities to get into first, the grocery sales and then eventually into pharmaceuticals.
So yeah, with that said, thank you so much for coming, and thank you all for being here as well, because without you all support, we're doing this for no reason, right? And so, like we always say, there's legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education, and with that, we are out.
Oh, you're still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS podcast.